one's the best
Josh
crypto
is in
asset?
New York City right now. He is
Crypto asset.
picketing outside
Which one's the best
AOC's.
crypto asset? Bitcoin's the best crypto asset. Which one's the best? 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 What's the second best? There is no second best.
You're live. I've heard he's got all sorts of things planned. I'm not sure if that's on the agenda or not. No, yeah, I think I can. Oh, it says no audio. No audio. You have audio? Is yours muted? Is your
And now it says unmute. Yeah, it was muted.
you were muted? Okay.
And normally it would unmute automatically.
Yeah. Well, we're just checking to see if you guys are paying attention, guys. So thanks for staying on it, Disco fam. Smash the like buttons. It's a great day. Yeah, he was saying Josh is not picketing outside of AOC's office, but is going to be up there meeting with a special luncheon. I'm pretty sure with Mayor Adams to talk about crypto innovation in New York City. I think there's supposed to be a lot of other major players in crypto there. I'm not sure of the exact guest list, but I've heard names like Brian Armstrong, Bo Hines, and some others. I'm not sure who all is going to be there, but pretty sure it's pretty stacked. Maybe even Howard Lutnick, pretty stacked table. So he's going to be there representing the Disco fam, representing the people, trying to help us get positive crypto legislation passed. And get things moving in the state of New York, which, as we all know, is kind of the financial capital, not just of the United States, but one of the major financial hubs of the world. So
yeah, so we're gonna have Josh out there, and he'll come back. He'll share all the details. But yeah, very exclusive VIP dinner or luncheon, I should say. So can't wait to hear the details on that one. But let's get into the crypto market because things have been going a little bit wild. I guess I don't know if we should start with Bitcoin or the market. We'll start with Bitcoin. Bitcoin, insane price action over the weekend. This is the 25-minute candle. I can go to the 1 hour as well. And a lot of people are just saying this was washing out all the leverage traders. It had a wash out to the upside, wash out to the downside, back up to a wash up to the upside, and then back to a wash out to the downside. But I saw something emerge from the pattern, everybody, and it was the market for 2025. Oh, it all starts to make sense. Now you got it. Now you got it. But let's look at the crypto market here. Just hit refresh so we get the freshest data. Bitcoin with a little bit of a pump here in the last hour, but still down slightly, 1.3%. ETH, not doing too hot, 4% decline. But I posted a trade in the Discord. We do have a trading channel in there. I put it in, I think it was in either DC Trades or DZ Trades. And we're doing pretty good on our ETH long. Just stepped in a little bit. I wanted a little bit of a better entry. So this was a small entry, but we're up 62%. And, we had a long fart coin as well. And we're up 125% on fart coin. So we got links down below if you want to trade on LBank.
And I know people, some of you guys were in there live trading with Josh last night on that pump. He hopped in, and I know some of the members made some big money. Josh had I don't know if he closed 4K. He was up 4K at one point.
I think he locked in the 4K profit.
He did. He locked it in. Nice. So. Heck yeah. So I know you guys are doing well. If you haven't joined yet, the link is in the description. I'll drop it in the chat here shortly. You just sign up with our UID, and you get in there for free for all the trading stuff. And then we're even doing members. Like I sat down with a member this morning and went over his portfolio, just kind of a one-on-one chat. So if you're getting in there early, there is plenty of time to get that very direct communication and hands-on. We got DeFi Crypto Airdrops, one of our other sister channels here. If you guys haven't checked that out, that's where we talk a lot about how to earn yield with DeFi. We're going to be doing some workshops specifically on that in there. So make sure to get in there and don't miss out.
Don't miss out, everybody. Now, let's not miss out on what's actually moving in the crypto market. As far as gainers, we don't really have much at all. We have Monero and KuCoin shares. After that is just stables, and it's a sea of red. So when we see the biggest losers in the top 100, well, you're going to see WIF is fallen considerably here. Athena is down, EOS is down, Jupiter is down, and Fartcoin is down as well. As part of the reasons I longed it there. And it's surprising to see Solana, one of the biggest losers here, is down 6.4%, but beating many of its peers on the weekly here. Solana is down less than 10% there. So we're not seeing too much pain. I'm a little curious here for the 7 day. 7 day outlook, not looking great for altcoins. 7 day outlook looking kind of terrible for plenty of altcoins here. I did not realize Pi has declined 45% over the last
Scam.
7 days. And I actually didn't. Oh man, I actually should have. I don't know if I put this in the DGen moves just yet. I didn't know optimism was down. I've traded out of my OP. TJ.
Oh, okay.
I traded out of my OP. I bought a DeFi coin, but I can't share it till tonight's video.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
going to be in tonight's video.
We're going to do 3 DeFi coins. 2, you probably already know. 1 is going to be a smaller cap gem. We're talking about closer to, $100 million market cap, not $1 billion market cap. So turn on notifications if you want to see what altcoin I am literally buying today. And it's Dylan K saying, buy the altcoin dip. I think it's pretty smart looking at what we're seeing here. Because Bitcoin is doing pretty incredibly, folks. Bitcoin notched a record weekly close. Closed on Sunday yesterday after the highest ever daily close candle. Did you realize it was the highest daily candle as well?
I knew it was the highest weekly. I didn't realize daily. I guess because we wicked up to 108, but we didn't close at 108.
I want to say Eastern Standard Time. It closes 5 or 6 p.m. I'm not entirely sure here. So we can actually look. We can check it right now. So we go to the daily. You can see the daily closes in 9 hours and 14 minutes. So it's going to be 9 hours from 11 a.m. So that's 8 p.m. 8 p.m. actually. So that's what we're looking for here, the 8 p.m. close. And Bitcoin came in at 106,500, highest ever weekly close, bringing it 3% away from its all-time high. And it closed a weekly gain. I also wasn't aware of this. For the last 6 weeks in a row, Bitcoin has been green and the highest daily close ever, according to Scott Melker. And with the daily close above 105, Bitcoin will develop a brand new higher high. And this is REC Capital. And additionally, a REIT Capital partner, McKenna, said the Coinbase Premium is back. And if you don't know the Coinbase Premium, it measures U.S. sentiment by comparing Coinbase's Bitcoin price to Binance's Bitcoin price. When Coinbase Premium is high, like it is now, it suggests that American investors have a strong appetite for Bitcoin. And traditionally, that's kind of led to Wall Street pumping Bitcoin for the rest of retail there. So we're looking at some bullishness on the horizon here when it comes to Bitcoin. And I love Stephen Cole's take here when we're talking about 100K Bitcoin. In no future does Bitcoin forever hover around 100K. Long term, it's either a $0 Bitcoin or $1 million Bitcoin. And he was quote tweeting himself from 2016.
Nice.
In no future does Bitcoin hover forever around 600. Long term, it's either 0 or 10,000 plus.
Stephen Cole's a great Bitcoiner. I met him. He's a LA guy or Orange County. Met him back in the day doing Orange County Bitcoin meetups. Really, really good guy. And that's pretty cool when you can quote tweet yourself and just remind everybody how right Bitcoiners have been for such a long time. So.
Yeah, he was telling us all. It was all in the charts there. But we got to talk about probably the biggest news in the financial markets today, TJ. That's going to be the bond market. Now, we're not talking about people posting bonds.
No.
There's a lot of people thinking, oh, this channel is talking about people posting bonds.
No.
That's not what we're talking about, right, TJ?
That is not what we're talking about.
Was there a bond set?
I don't think there were any bonds to be posted.
Okay, there's no bonds to be posted here. But let's talk about the U.S. bonds. The 30-year Treasury yield breaches 5% amid a Moody's rating downgrade. Now there's some fiscal concerns. So we got rising deficits, reduced foreign demand, and investor unease over trade policy. This has driven bond market turbulence and broader risk aversion. And then, TJ, I'm going to have a lot of these X accounts, kind of breaking this down. So the UK now has overtaken China as the second largest foreign holder of U.S. treasuries, as both China and Japan have steadily reduced their holdings over the past year. TJ, what are they buying instead?
Gold or Bitcoin?
Gold or Bitcoin, that is right. And the yield on the U.S. 30-year Treasury bill crossed 5% threshold for the first time since April, reaching an intraday high of 5.011%. This comes in the wake of Moody's downgrading U.S. credit, stripping the country of its AAA rating due to mounting deficits and escalating interest expenses here. The last time the long end of the yield curve reached 5%, this was April 9th, during the so-called tariff tantrum, which triggered sharp sell-offs in both crypto and U.S. equity markets. Now, in addition, the UK surpassed China in March, become the second largest holder of U.S. treasuries. Well, who's number one? They got 780 billion. They're trailing only Japan, which remains the top foreign holder. So we're seeing a lot of news just with the bond markets, but I'm worried when I hear Japan is the largest holder of U.S. debt. Have you seen Japan's yields lately, TJ?
I have not, and I do know there's a lot of worrisome things when it comes to this stuff. I'll let you go ahead and finish this thought here, and then I've got a couple things I'll chime in with as well as far as what I think is coming.
Well,
So,
Kobayashi just posted, well, what the heck is happening in Japan? Their 40-year bond yield hit the highest level in 20 years, and the prime minister has called the situation worse than Greece. For those who don't remember, what happened to Greece?
hyperinflation, burning money in the streets, basically confetti money.
Yeah, and
Complete collapse.
kind of say by the euro.
Yep.
Luckily they're able to just tap into a larger pool with also a weakening currency, just not as weak as Greeks was. And all Japan's GDP is now contracting again. So what do you got, TJ, here?
Well, a couple different things. One is, here's just a kind of a breakdown. Kobayashi was sharing, the 30-year note above 5%, 5%, and even mid fours is something to really watch here. But when you see the 30-year is yielding more than the 10-year, that's never good when you see that inversion. A lot of times people are watching also when the 2-year flips the 10-year, and both of them extremely high. And it basically feels like no matter what happens, these bond yields keep going up, which means they're having to entice buyers more and more to buy them, which means there's not a lot of buyers, right? And that's scary when nobody's buying US debt. We're going to cover what's coming up this week. Let me see if I can. We're going to cover this. There's a big bill coming through Congress right now, and it's been delayed a little bit. And the number one reason I think they're trying to get this done is because it's a stable coin act, and we all know the play right now for the U.S. and really for fiat currency in general is to open up the floodgates and allow stable coin issuers to be one of the main buyers of U.S. Treasuries. Because overnight, and I'll have to go find the post, but recently there are not buyers for U.S. Treasuries, which is very bad. It comes back to the credit rating being downgraded, and if nobody's buying U.S. debt, that means they don't believe in the U.S.'s ability to repay it. Which only leaves a couple options. One, the Fed has to buy, which they did. I did a post a while back here. Let's see if I can pull that up on the Discover Crypto page. It's actually our pinned tweet. It went pretty viral in the sense that it was, and when I was saying this is QE has begun. Really, it's stealth QE. I knew it wasn't actually 100% QE, but it was the beginning of stealth quantitative easing when the Fed bought $35 billion worth of Treasury bonds. Well, that just happened again this weekend. I'll find the post on that shortly. The Fed is the buyer of U.S. Treasuries, which we know that's happened in the past. And what they usually precedes is a very, very large print. Now, coming up this week, let me see if and we actually just came out this morning. The Fed and says central banks stand ready to provide liquidity, which means buy the debt. Provide liquidity just means buy U.S. debt, which allows people to print money and send all of our bags to the absolute moon. So thanks, Daddy Powell, for getting ready to pump our bags. He's trying to stabilize the markets, and this is a big factor here. But coming up this week, we've got Trump is going to. This is all happening today. Trump will speak to Putin. Coinbase is joining the S&P 500.
And that's at 2 p.m. Not to cut you off. Trump speaking of Putin, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Nice.
I wouldn't have a trade opened. Well, I don't think they're talking live, so it's going to be volatile, though.
Yeah, it's going to be volatile. Saylor he already has announced another Bitcoin purchase. There also somebody suing him now, which is interesting. But this is the big one. U.S. Senate to vote on Stablecoin Bill Genius Act. Now, we know Pocahontas really pushed this back a little bit, and the way she was, insisting. Basically, she came out and said, hey guys, don't pass this unless we protect the big banks. The big banks need protection on this Genius Bill Act. We can't allow this to go through without my big donors having the protection they need. We don't want to put a threat to the big banks. So they've kind of revised some things in there. Some of the wording in there protects the legacy players a little bit more. They didn't want the Tethers and the Circles to come in and eat their lunch. So I think they're ready to pass this thing now. It's going to be voted on today, but this is basically critical that they get this done in order for there to be buyers for U.S. Treasuries, because we know Tether, Circle, some of the biggest recent purchasers of U.S. Treasuries, and they need to be able to buy those to issue more stable coins. It's basically the way they create demand on the dollar, and that's what this all comes down to. The faster they can get dollars into the faster they can increase the demand on dollars, the less impact it's going to have when they print a bazillion more. That's not a technical term, bazillion, but that's basically what they're doing. They're going to print a F ton of new money.
Yeah, yeah.
CME to launch XRP futures. Take with that as you want. Generally speaking, when a new futures things launches, that's not necessarily bullish on the short term. It's good for the long term because you need this to get the ETFs done. But in a lot of ways, it just gives people ways to hedge and short. But then also Tuesday, Google biggest developer conference. Thursday, Trump dinner with the Trump token holders. And then Sunday, Fed Chair Powell speaks. And that's going to be a big one to watch this Sunday. So it's a big, big, big week coming up. And part of what we're really seeing is the demand for that Genius Bill Stablecoin Act. That's the number one thing to be watching. And I think once that passes, it's not going to be immediate, but it's going to be one of the major things to get new money flowing back into crypto. And then I'm going to pull up if I can find it. Give me a minute. I'm going to find some other things about.
Remember what happened at the last Trump dinner?
No.
That's when he announced the Trump meme coin. Remember?
Oh,
There's the
interesting.
people on the floor like, we don't know if it's real. We think it's real.
Oh, you're talking about the crypto ball or whatever it was? Yeah. I didn't. Yeah, that's true. That did come out there.
And this is a Stablecoin Genius Act, not to be confused with this, which was Donald Trump's post where he was saying he's a very stable genius. That's
wow.
two different things: stablecoin genius and a very stable genius at that. So, classic Trump post right there.
All right. Well, here, I did find the two things I wanted to pull up that I didn't have pulled up just yet. So let me.
I do got some bond stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if
you
that's
got
what
it
you're looking
already.
For. I got all the things.
All right.
TJ.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it right there.
I'm like Thanos.
That's it.
I got all the things. I snap and I make it go away, and I snap and I bring it right back. Fed caught quietly bailing out the bond market with a $43 billion injection. This is what TJ was talking about. They have a bond. They go out to the market and they're like, oh, the whole world's going to want to buy this. And no one raised their hand. And they're like, I guess I'll dig in my own pocket. You know what I mean? And so when the Fed digs in their own pocket, pulls out, $43 billion.
Hey, we found a buyer.
We found a buyer of $43 billion. So no buyers, no problems. They snapped up billions in treasuries, 8.8 and 30-year bonds in a single day before $43 billion in total last week. The big print has just begun. Everybody now, here's another breakdown from Stellar Rippler, which is a pretty good name. I'll give it to him for that. U.S. Fed quietly bought $43 billion in just 4 days. This is called quantitative easing, when the Fed prints money to buy its own debt, injecting fresh liquidity into the system. In simple terms, the money printer isn't paused, it is warming up. And every time it turns on, assets like Bitcoin, I swear to God, I didn't finish. It's no surprise that, the Rippler or whatever they call themselves, Stellar Rippler, pumping XRP and XLM don't just rise, they explode in price. The rocket fuel is here. The next leg up has begun. Now, we also have someone kind of breaking it down. So let's go up. So this is Carl Menger. A lot of smart takes here, over 100K followers. Breaking. Fed quietly bailing out the bond market.
That's what you just read.
43. So this is a reply.
And by the way, if you guys don't follow Josh's
dad.
Yeah, no, he's one of the major MicroStrategy bulls. Extremely smart. Probably one of my favorite follows recently on X.
All right, I'll give him a little follow.
Highly recommend following a lot of his content. He covers MicroStrategy options a lot. He's the one who was live trading and kind of posting his wins and portfolio. Can't remember what it was, many millions on MicroStrategy. Also talks a lot about MSTY. And then real quick, before we get into that, Steve-O asked, isn't the Fed buying bonds considered QE? Yes, by all means. By my definitions, it is. When you go look it up, it is. You're going to see people argue and get ticky-tacky about
year over year change.
Yeah, well, or like when I posted it the first time, people said, actually what they're doing is rolling it over and rebuying it at a different price. And it's like, okay, fine, but it's stealth QE. This is like that post that DZ just read. That is the printer warming up. And it is the sign that QE is
They're putting the ink cartridge in right now.
And for those of you who don't know, QE is one of the main things. When we say QE, we're talking about quantitative easing. That's one of the main things that pumps altcoins. And we've been saying for a long time, that's when things go risk on. Bitcoin, all environments generally are good for Bitcoin. Not all environments are good for altcoins. You need new money coming into the system for altcoins right now. Smart money's going into Bitcoin either way. But when new money comes in, that's when smart money rotates into higher risk assets. And that's when they really, really perform. That's why I've been saying all year that I think this is going to be happening this summer and that altcoins will perform really well this summer. And we're starting to see the early signs of that now. So Josh Mann or Josh Mandel breaking it down here as well. So hit that.
Yeah, Josh Mandel's Howie's brother. So he's saying, take this from a former market maker and 30-year Treasury bonds, Solomon. This Solomon brother is a very, very powerful hedge fund.
So he used to be the market maker for the Treasuries.
Yeah,
back in the day.
So this guy knows his stuff. So this is the Justin's son of bonds here. This is a ticking time bomb swept under the rug. We used to talk about the disaster that would ensue if there's ever a missed auction and 30-year bonds. A missed auction means that there were not enough bids to cover the offering. Think about that. Were it not for the Fed, for the U.S. government, we'd be experiencing a failure to roll over bonds right now, which then leads to default. Personally, I blame fiscal policy, monetary policy. In this case, low-key quantitative easing in disguise is just the janitor cleaning up the mess they made by Congress. There isn't enough rug to hide this for long. Soon they'll pull up the rug and find the dead bodies. It's really beginning to smell bad. The big print is coming. Read about it before it happens if you want to get ahead of the curve. And so position yourself wisely with assets that are, hard money, similar to Bitcoin, and maybe these quality alts that we're trying to put on your radar. Now, people are feeling kind of bullish, though. TJ, did you see the giant 40x whale?
I did see that. Yep, and that's
he's been identified this morning.
Oh no,
I got
the
breaking news.
Let's see it.
He's about to get DZ'd. This 40x Bitcoin whale just increased his long position $488 million. He definitely knows something. So he got in, he just kept going long. He kept going long.
That's some conviction right there.
Diamond hands and big brass ones. So we found the whale behind the $500 million long, and it's not a fun. It's James Wynn. James Wynn Real, world-renowned degenerate. I like leverage. I like memes. But most of all, I like to win. So funny account here. His wallet just went 40x long. Here he is. I'm not going to do the whole thread here, but he just made $46 million in profits on Hyperliquid in just the last 2 months. He just closed a $10 million long earlier this month, and he runs a vault, Moon Capital. So it's the guy behind Moon Capital is the guy behind this one, and they have his address. They have everything there. Current P&L. Now, this is a little bit older here, 3 hours ago. At the time, though, he was down $2 million, and he's paid out almost $1 million in fees just to Hype. So Hype is just making money just by keeping this trade open there. And he also has long on some crap meme coin. So I don't know. If it pumps, you heard it here first. If it dumps, I told you not to buy it.
Well, yeah, that's pretty crazy to see some of those kinds of things. I will break down what he does know here in a minute. There's some interesting insights into what the Senate and the House are getting ready to pass when we're talking about the big prints. But I did want to give a shout out where to go. Nick C. I was one of the first people to spend Bitcoin at Steak and Shake in Missouri. Feels good. That's pretty cool. If you guys didn't know, that went live on
fantastic burgers
Friday. Yeah, better shakes, I'd say. But
I think they've upped their quality in something.
They probably the tallow. I know they did the fries.
Tallow.
A lot of people are the beef tallow on the fries. A lot of people are big fans of. Well, while I'm reading this, we got a chat here from Gary Austin. Do you think Ondo can get to $6 this cycle? You want to pull up Ondo real quick?
Yeah,
but
pull up Ondo.
While he's pulling that up, I did want to hit one more thing when it comes to the big print and what people are anticipating here. It's this. Here we go. This right here. Oh, no, wrong screen. Lawrence Leopard, another, again, very good account to follow, investment manager, equity management. He knows a lot about, he's been doing this for a long time, and he has a lot of really good insights. He said, I asked Grok about the budget plans being discussed in Congress, found out that indeed nothing stops this train. So when we're talking about the Treasury and the fact that they weren't getting any bids, it is a sign of cracks in the entire system. And every time we hear about this, there's really only two options. Either A, they let the whole entire system collapse, the whole fiat system, the whole world comes crashing down, and everybody's in panic, or B, they print a ton of money. And every time so far in the past, they've chosen option B, to print a ton of money, and it looks like they're proposing to do that again. So he asked some questions about what's being discussed. The 2025 budget plan, as currently proposed, will significantly grow the federal deficit by 2.8 to $5.8 trillion over 2025 to 2034, potentially reaching 6.2 to 7 trillion with interest, depending on whether provisions are temporary or permanent. The House plan is less aggressive, 2.8 trillion, while Senate's looser constraints allow up to 5.8 trillion. These figures far exceed CBO baseline deficit projections driven by large tax cuts with insufficient spending reductions for precise impacts. The final reconciliation bill details and CBO scoring will be critical. This is from the Congressional Budget Office, Bipartisan Policy Centers, Committee of Responsible. Yeah, that's funny. Committee of Responsible Federal Budget. Yeah, right. And Center on the Budget Policy Priorities. But basically, they're talking about printing trillions and trillions and trillions of multi-trillions of dollars again to bail us out of this situation. That is not great for the long-term fiscal responsibility of this nation, but it is great if you hold assets like Bitcoin, and it's really good. Again, it's going to. This is why when you hear people talking about $1 million Bitcoin, this is why. It's because they're talking about printing trillions of dollars again. So in 2008, they printed a ton of money. What happened? It was really good for Bitcoin. In 2020, they printed an insane amount more money. It was very, very, very good for risk on assets. And now, again, they're talking about printing a ridiculous amount of money. And I did want to hit this from the one and only Saifedean Amos, the author of the Bitcoin Standard. If you guys haven't read the Bitcoin Standard, I highly recommend it. One of the best books out there when it comes to understanding hard money. 5 years ago, at the height of the corona hysteria, talking in 2020, everybody was worried about their savings, telling you, now is, everything's about to collapse. The world's about to end. If you put $10,000, and we were just talking about these treasury bonds, into quote unquote risk-free long-term U.S. treasury bonds, you'd have $6,000. So you would have lost money if you put $10,000 in 5 years ago. If you put $5,000 into that super risky speculative tulip Bitcoin, you'd have 106 grand today. 5 years, $10,000 would have turned into $106,000. And people are talking about bonds being safe. And I think the jig is finally up when it comes to this. Smart money has realized U.S., risk-free U.S. treasuries are no longer risk-free. The budget is unsustainable. The only way they pay their debt or they even service the interest on their debt is to print an insane amount more money. The jig is up on the fiat system. People are looking for other options. Gold is going parabolic. Bitcoin is going parabolic. And that is why, and we're seeing that play out over and over again. This is why we Bitcoin. This is why we tell you guys to get out of fiat or get out of dollars or whatever your local currency is and buy Bitcoin. This is the proof is in the pudding, and it's a little scary when you see the entire system showing major cracks. These aren't small cracks. These are big cracks, like Josh Man on X was talking about. If you've been doing this a long time, people have been saying for years and years, hey, if any of these signs start to show, this is very concerning. Well, now not only are they showing, but they're actually water's bursting through them. And there's the only backstop is printing money. And we've seen that, like DZ just showed, Japan's buying our debt. Well, what's Japan's debt doing? They're going out of control. They're printing money like crazy. So they can only do that for so long.
Yeah, and Ray Dalio has been talking about the same issue. He just put out that video, I want to say it was about a week ago or so. It's 4 minutes long. You go down to May 13th and you'll see it right here. And he says there's 2 times the U.S. has ran out of money. One, we had the wake of World War I. We got a whole new financial system. Everything pumped. Then they talk about the Nixon, going off the gold standard. A lot would say that was in the wake of Vietnam. So, you're kind of seeing a theme after wars. He was working on Wall Street. He said, I remember seeing Nixon's televised, speech. He said, oh my God, we're literally saying the U.S. currency is worthless. He went to work the next day on Wall Street. He's like, I'm just expecting a sea of red. And it was a sea of green. Why? Because they knew money printing was about to happen again. And now we kind of have unsustainable debt. Some would say, I would say, probably because of in the wake of the war on terror, we were just in a huge, huge deficit, spending trillions that we couldn't afford. And now we might see a third opportunity of the last 120 years of just a complete overhaul of the financial system. If that happens, you want to be in hard assets. Now, speaking of hard assets, I think some of these companies are starting to get the fever here. Metaplanet scooped up another 1,000 Bitcoin. Pretty significant. Is their second biggest buy ever. So they're really starting to step it up. They're now up to almost 8,000. Also, Michael Saylor of Strategy, they expanded their Bitcoin holdings. $764 million worth. They paid 103 per Bitcoin. They're still below 70K though. The price is now at 69,726, and they have almost 3% of all the Bitcoin that will ever exist. That would be 630,000. They right now have 576,000. And like you said earlier, MicroStrategy is under, they got sued, a class action lawsuit. Their lawsuit alleges misleading statements on their Bitcoin strategy. DJ, I did a little research this morning. This was announced on the 18th. It's Pomerantz Law Firm. So I went looking into Pomerantz Law Firm. They actually have some wins under their belt. They got 47 million against Novarax, 70 million against Wynn Resorts, part of a Me Too, and they also won against Apple. So normally I wouldn't even care about a class action lawsuit. Like Elon Musk probably has 20 filed every single day. But maybe something to pay attention to there.
Yeah,
Now,
it's unfortunate. I was looking at over the weekend somebody had posted something about the amount of personal injury lawyers and what like you're saying, oh, we see these billboards everywhere. How much money are these guys making? And it's an insane amount. It's really
I saw that post,
it's really unfortunate that anybody can just walk in and sue anybody without much claim. This will most likely settle, if I had to guess, because it's just a big math equation, and it's like, okay, you can keep on doing this, or you can settle it, and it'll be behind you and it'll be done. And then that firm is able to take their win, like DZ just mentioned, and go pay out the clients that they got involved. It's sad to see. I think it's unfortunate, but I did want to come back to Metaplanet real quick because you were talking about their buys. I did want to show this. I mean, ever since they adopted the Bitcoin strategy, they're up 83% in the past month.
Dang.
1 month for an 80% pump on a stock is pretty insane. So obviously Metaplanet involvement with David Bailey and Eric Trump, and also highly committed to adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet. It's going to be very fascinating to see how all these Bitcoin treasury companies fare. We know the main two, MicroStrategy and 21 Capital, have a pretty substantial lead and a pretty substantial, I would say, competitive advantage. But it's going to be interesting to watch this arms race play out.
Yeah, people are saying, will houses go up as well? Yeah, housing will definitely go up. Be careful betting too much against that. There's a pretty interesting Fred chart, which is stands basically how the Fed tracks home prices there. And I can't find it right now, but the housing dips don't last for long.
No.
TJ, you're in real estate.
Yeah.
I mean, 08 there wasn't much opportunity there.
Nope,
It was short.
It was extremely short. I think it was about 2 years, and it was only about 15% to 20%, I believe, and that's considered huge for real estate. And it was
and there were markets that did worse, like Florida or whatever.
Sure. That's a national average.
National average, 15%.
So you might have had Florida or Las Vegas or some parts of Southern California that were. But again, what's interesting? Yes, they did worse in that 1 year, but they also had pumped the hardest the years leading up to it. So it's almost like seeing a meme coin that has a 2,000% return, and sure, it's going to have a bigger drawdown when things correct, but it also pumped hard again after.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, those houses that fell more gained more.
They gained. They were the ones that the fraud was the highest, and it was absolutely insane.
Except for Ohio, because that's not a real place, right?
Yeah, I don't know if that place really exists, specifically Cleveland, but
that's your dogs and cats.
But yes, real estate, any hard asset. Again, that's why you hear a lot of people say gold, real estate, Bitcoin, the things that you really can't make more of. Although I think I mentioned this Friday. I know a guy. There's a company that's on. The CEO of Vermeer they make huge machinery for all sorts of stuff. He's on a board that I serve with, kind of like a peer advisory board. They were telling us they have actually developed a machine for Blue Origin that they're taking to outer space to mine helium or H3, to be used as a clean energy source down here. And they're starting that, I think 2027 is when they're going to start mining in space for rare earth minerals. Basically, we all know there's tons of rare earth minerals out there in space. And I always thought, like, oh yeah, this whole asteroid mining gold, all that kind of stuff that people have always talked about for a long time, that's so far out there. It appears that's a lot closer than I once thought it was.
Are you aware CERN turned lead into gold?
I did. I saw that. That's crazy. Yeah. And did you see the chart of where it may have been the same post. I saw it over the weekend that they are able to actually create gold in a lab, and then they overlaid the diamond value of once they discovered that you could do that with diamonds, and then the overall value of diamonds going down. So gold, I'm not trying to FUD gold. Still love gold. It is a hard asset. It's been around for thousands of years. It's been one of the best store of value. Don't want to enrage all the gold bugs out there, but I would choose Bitcoin over gold for a lot of those reasons.
And to be clear, it was like a small amount of time. It was they collided two lead particles, very high speeds, and it was gold for a very short period, but
still interesting.
still a step in the right direction.
Very,
Now we
it's
never
much,
did
go ahead.
the Ondo. We never called it Ondo.
Oh yeah. Let's go back to Ondo. Sorry, I'm going too fast.
Can Ondo hit $6? Well, that's not my target, but I do have a moon math target of $6. So this is kind of like Chainlink. I think it's going to 100 this cycle, but there is a world in which it goes to 200. So I think we probably, if we top out say around the end of the year, this is December 2025. This is around 340. This pretty good area around there. But there is the moon math target, and this is actually a $6 target. And so I do think there's going to be some amount of traders going to be looking. This is the 3-day chart. You can also see it on the weekly. I think there's going to be people looking at the tops. And if we go measure it out to December, well, wait, that's January. December, what do you know? Right at $6. So you're asking, can Ondo go to $6? I would say it can, but I'm more banking on taking a lot of heavy profits in this $3 range. I would not be round tripping all the way up, hoping it goes to 6, because it went up to 3, or I plan on it going up to 3. If it does that, it can go back down to 2 and revisit these local highs very, very quickly. And if you're still waiting on, $6, you might have missed a couple opportunities there. Come on, we can't even break $1. I guess he's talking about Ondo. Oh, wow. Yeah, look at it. It's actually, kind of at a pivotal moment right here, trying to get above $1. But let me just zoom out. Oh, wow.
I mean, it's
97.
It's hit $2. I don't understand that.
I was just talking about like today's price action. Try to get up to $1. Try to get up to $1. Couldn't quite pull it off. And this blue line is right there at $1.
Again, guys, these altcoins, if you haven't been around to see what altcoins can do when we're in an easing environment, when they're in a money printing environment, these altcoins will shock you. I think $6 is extremely achievable on Ondo. I mean, it's sitting at about a 9 billion fully diluted value.
We'll see how much it has fallen. Like you're saying, the more it falls, the more it can pump. I mean, it's down 56% from its local high.
Yeah,
got as low as 67%.
And again, local high was 6 months ago.
Yeah,
that was just December of this year. So I mean, to say it's going to 3x from its local high is not an unreasonable take. I mean, a lot of people have and are anticipating it getting into the top 10, top 20 coins. If we get the U.S. government printing trillions of dollars again, these altcoins will absolutely soar. We're talking a 200K Bitcoin. We're talking, a $6,000 to $8,000 Ethereum. If we're talking, I mean, I know your target for Cardano is in that $6 to $8 range. Is that right? Is that still where you're seeing Cardano? Yeah. So if you're seeing those, you're talking $100 billion market cap coins. Ondo right now sitting at basically $3 billion. It could very easily get to $10 to $20 billion. That's not even, I don't even think, an aggressive pitch there. They just settled. A lot of people are surprised, like, what, with all this really good news about Chainlink and Ondo, they just settled a major transaction with JP Morgan on treasuries. It all stems through this stablecoin bill act. As soon as they get the regulatory clarity to do this stuff, what that's gonna allow is these stablecoin providers to buy treasuries like crazy. They're going to be using things like Ondo, things like Chainlink to make that happen.
Are you going to sell your Ondo? This is from a member here. Is it to hold through the next cycle? Ondo to me is a sell token.
Yeah, there's really no token I won't consider selling at the top other than Bitcoin. Now, when is the top? I'm still kind of in a wait and see. Traditional 4-year cycle theory says, October-ish. You can maybe give or take September, November.
Most liquidity cycles follow 4-year cycles, and it looks like we're kind of sticking in a cycle now.
Absolutely. I mean, and Raoul Pal is one of the famous ones right there, saying it's really not the 4-year cycle. It's really the global debt cycle that's driving these pumps, which I think it's a little bit of both, but that's why we're spending so much time talking about the debt cycle. So,
and no, that's Raoul Pal, not to be mistaken with Ralph Mouth. That's a different rhyming name there.
But yeah, when we get to September, October, November, that's traditionally when the top should be. You could call it October. I may wait out until November because that's when altcoins should pump. But most likely, I'm rolling all altcoins into Bitcoin at that time. Now there is a theory that we've been watching and charting for an extended cycle into Q1 of 2026. Depending on what happens with all these markets, depending on where prices are at the end of this year, I could hold out until 2026. We're going to be watching what the printers are doing. But yes, I mean, more or less, there's nothing I hold beyond. My only long-term hold is Bitcoin. Everything else is speculation to try to get more Bitcoin.
All right, we got a Viapiano here with the 100K medium long-term mindset. Would you 5x long Bitcoin or spot hold the ADA, Ondo, ETH, Sol, and safe alternatives or altcoins here? 5xing long Bitcoin was the move to make under 80K.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't personally do a long-term 5x long bet on Bitcoin here. I would wait for hit new all-time highs and see if we do that. Sometimes you see like the double top style move where, it only moves within $1,000 of that previous range. And then we start seeing some mega dumps. There's no guarantee once we clear all-time highs, it's teleporting to 138 or 120. We want that to happen. There's definitely a shot for that to happen, but wait for a safer bet. Me personally, I would just probably stick with the altcoins. If those are the two choices.
I would say for you, Mike, do what your strength, lean into your strength. If you're a very good leverage trader and you've got a lot of experience in it and you do well with leverage trading, then that there's nothing wrong with that strategy. If you're not and you're more of a spot holder, then hold spot. And so to DZ's point, I'm in the same boat. I leverage trade some for fun, but it's not.
Oh, look at this. I forgot we drew the head and shoulders. If you really, you just love leverage trading, I mean, maybe wait for a right shoulder.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say is, I mean, if this is what you do and that's your bread and butter, you make a big amount of your money trading leverage, then a 5x long is pretty conservative. I think it's, we're going to see Bitcoin perform extremely well. You got to also have to have a pretty large amount of capital. I don't know what size you're talking about doing that with, but if you do it with major size, like if you're talking like 50 to 100K that you're going to do which isn't even major size, but if you do it with anywhere from 50 to 100K, I think you could perform extremely well. Comparatively, but for me, holding ADA, Ondo, ETH, and Sol, generally safe alts that should perform well. That's a much less stressful thing for me to do. So that's the way I would play it. But if I would lean into your strengths on that. I think
curious
both could work.
What that liquidation level would be. So I just did a quick, just to see 83,000. You're roughly around $84,000 liquidation price with a 5x long here. And so
with how much?
And I closed the ETH long and the fart long. By the way, say what?
How much collateral or what's your like?
Oh well, I was just doing this for an example, just to tell him like 5x. I mean, also I could have just drawn it down 20%. That's how the math would work there. But yeah, so you got a pretty good area before you would get liquidated. But
still, that's not outside of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if we hit 80. That right shoulder could hit 80. It would still be. Let me go back to the chart here. That's Bitcoin dominance. It would still be lower than the head. 80s coming around here. So I mean, that would definitely be like a Michael Jackson Thriller shoulder, but you could still make an argument there's a shoulder there.
All right, another super chat here from Byron. Spot holder sold my BTC yesterday and converted into Sol, Sweet, Arrow, Ondo today at the dip a few hours ago. Bad move, or do I have more upside now?
Well, there's one chart we need to look at to determine that. Bitcoin dominance. And that was actually coincidentally the next chart I was going to show you. Bitcoin dominance on the weekly chart looks like, wait a minute, we're supposed to get a whole bunch of red weekly candles. Now, this weekly candle that you see right there closed 15 hours ago. So we're fresh into this new weekly candle. So let's go back to the dailies, kind of try to, determine what's happening here. Are we seeing weakness on the daily? Well, we're actually seeing a pretty sharp drawdown on the RSI, followed by a pretty quick recovery. But I like the direction of where we're heading. I mean, it does seem like, we're finally starting to lose some RSI, starting to lose some strength here in Bitcoin dominance. So it is my prediction that, yeah, we're probably going to be, maybe hitting a somewhat of a point of just return down to the bottom. I mean, I do think as this goes down, that is alt season. I feel like it's a good choice, but, there is this just scary trend line that's just almost beckoning. It's like beckoning Bitcoin. And so, that's the only thing I'm worried about here is just coming up and just flash wicking everybody and wrecking everybody who has alts. But I still have dry powder on the sideline. So if alts get wrecked, I'll be there to scoop it up. Baby.
Yeah, no, I don't hate that play. I mean, I think, Bitcoin maxis are rolling in their grave, but I do think that Sol, Sui, Arrow, Ondo, all strong picks, all will perform extremely well when altcoins are in season. I think we're very close to that. Just be patient. We could see, to DZ's point, another leg down potentially for altcoins or leg up for Bitcoin dominance in the next couple months. But when we get to a printing environment, whether that's June, whether that's July, I'm really targeting August. I think you're going to be in well position. So just remain patient. Don't capitulate on that choice, which you probably won't.
Yeah,
but
don't capitulate, because look what happened last time. This is according to Rand here. Altcoins bleeding against Bitcoin while Bitcoin's approaching a golden cross on the daily chart. They've been bleeding against Bitcoin for I'll give it to them. We got about 5 green daily candles here. So alts bleeding against Bitcoin. Last 3 times alts bled against Bitcoin. Bitcoin pumped 40%, 120%, 60%. And so make sure you're positioned, everybody. Now, did you see the whole argument and Bitcoin proposal to change the name of a Satoshi to Bitcoin?
To bits. Yeah, I agree.
Bits.
I'm
or
on,
just Bitcoin. Look, that's according to Jack,
yeah.
aka ex-CEO or founder of Twitter.
I'm actually on board with this. I think
I actually am too.
I think they've missed a lot when it comes to branding, and like Bitcoin has no CMO, has no head of brand, and there's a lot of things remaining in Bitcoin that are very engineer minded.
Chat, what do we think? Is this a smart idea or an idiotic idea? Smart or dumb?
Well, just let's break it down real quick. What is it they're talking about doing?
All right, so sats are technically Bitcoin, so it's not incorrect to just stop calling them sats and just call them Bitcoin again. Just saying, there's 100 million sats in every Bitcoin, and so they're saying change the name of sats to Bitcoin, is then you're going to see, well, each Bitcoin is a penny, and so that's going to make the unit bias. People will be a lot more inclined to say, hey, I bought 1,000 Bitcoin versus I bought 0.0001 Bitcoin. No one wants to do that, but someone would want to buy 1,000 Bitcoin, aka 1,000 sats.
Absolutely. I mean, we talked about unit bias a lot last week, and then King Peasant says, noobs have no idea what a sat is, which is true. Like, we forget. We've heard sats for so long, stack sats, and people are like, what are sats? Is that
satellites?
Is that an altcoin that I don't know about? And it's like, no, it's just a piece of a Bitcoin. It's one tiny little bit of a Bitcoin, and if you could say you could buy 1,000 bits, or you can buy 1,000, I don't agree with calling it Bitcoin, because I do think that would be confusing, like one whole Bitcoin versus 100,000 Bitcoin. Like, people would get very confused if you called them both Bitcoin, I think. But calling it bits, because it's bits of a Bitcoin, I think is much better, much easier for new people to understand and to say, oh yeah, you can buy 10,000 bits, and then and people would get excited about that versus 0.01 Bitcoin or 0.001 Bitcoin. I think bits makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I would agree. Now, the other end of the argument is kind of funny. I would disagree with this, but kind of funny. Of all the things about Bitcoin, explaining sats is by far the least confusing thing. Nearly a decade of educating people, I haven't had a single person ever say, whoa, hold on. Smaller pieces of Bitcoin don't start with the word B. Yeah, you lost me.
Yeah.
I don't think that's really the case here. I think a lot of it is more unit bias. And I will say this, I've had in nearly a decade of educating people, I've had a lot of people say, oh, it's too expensive, I'm not buying.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd rather buy. That's the main reason people say, oh, I'd rather buy. We covered it, I think it was Friday, with Dave Portnoy talking about XRP. He said, I'd rather buy 1,000 XRP than 0.001 Bitcoin. And it's just people's, because people still do the math for whatever reason. Over a decade of educating people, they still don't understand market cap.
First time I ever bought crypto, ever. It's like 2 months ago. No, so I downloaded Coinbase. I remember I'm laying in bed and I'm like, all right, I think I had to wait for a bank transfer. I was like, oh, you're gonna charge me to teleport the money? I'll wait. And so I was like, oh yeah, that money probably hit that Coinbase account. So I opened up Coinbase to buy Bitcoin, literally to buy Bitcoin. I'm sure it's, single digit thousands. And I saw how cheap that coin called XRP was. There wasn't that many coins to buy on Coinbase. And I was like,
probably 3 back then.
I should buy that instead.
Yep.
It's cheaper. I was a noob. We're all there.
That's how, and everybody does that. Oh, if this does the same thing that Bitcoin did, or if this, like, if you're looking at Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP at the time, I think that was what was on Coinbase back then. And then you say, oh, well, Ethereum's at $1,200 and Bitcoin's at, what was it at? Probably $7,000 around then. Maybe, yeah, it was probably around there. And then you had this other thing that was at $2 or something, or $1.50. Then you say, oh, well, if this thing that's $1.50 can just get to not even what Bitcoin did, what Ethereum is, I'm going to make X amount. And everybody does that math, and nobody understands market cap, and nobody understands token supply, and nobody, like not nobody, but most retail traders. And then people, and no, XRP has not outperformed Bitcoin, but I hate to break it to you. Go look at that. Go pull up Bitcoin to XRP, and you will see it only goes one direction, and it's not up for XRP. So
I'll say, yeah, when it came to that, I had traded stocks for probably a decade at that point. I knew all about dividends. I knew about earnings per share, and I knew about outstanding shares, but I still wasn't like quite like, no, you got to bust out the calculator and like multiply by the 40 billion tokens, or whatever the number might be. So all right, now let's look at the XRP Bitcoin trading pair on the long term. I mean, it kind of found a bottom, This
Yeah.
is all the way back to 2014.
yeah, it found a bottom. I'm not saying it, look, you got a recent pump. I'll give you that, but you can't say it's outperformed Bitcoin. It's not even close. Not even close.
Yeah.
Look at that. Look at the direction of that yellow line. That's its performance against Bitcoin.
Yeah, stings the nostrils there. All right, let's see here. So should we call it Bitcoin? Should we not call it Bitcoin? The sats. I like it. Now, Coinbase, we covered all the news last week about what happened with the data breaches. You maybe got a whole bunch of text messages or a bunch of scam emails here. Coinbase is now hit with a wave of lawsuits over these customer data breaches. So, expect a lot of lawsuits to come from this. And we'll see. I'm assuming they're going to have to pay out a lot of money. Their own internal numbers were $400 million. So a lot of money potentially going to be paid out. But Tether, also some other news here. Tether surpassing Germany when it comes to holders of U.S. Treasury holdings. This is significant. The largest economy in Europe is Germany. So this is a major, major milestone. And so looking here, Tether has now surpassed them. According to the Department of the Treasury here, it's a little hard to see. But yeah, Japan, we covered in the start of the show. Japan, number one, UK. China was just passed by the UK. Cayman Islands, that's not suspicious. Canada, Luxembourg, Belgium, France, Ireland. I almost said Iceland. Ireland, Switzerland, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore, India, Brazil, Norway, Germany, all the way down here. So next up, going to be past South Korea, followed by Saudi Arabia. So Tether, literally more important when it comes to U.S. Treasuries than the largest nation in the European Union. So becoming a very, very important part of the U.S. economy. Good or bad, TJ?
It's
good for crypto holders.
Yeah, it's ahead. I don't know. Nothing in my opinion. I'm very bearish on the dollar. So this is all a desperate way to hold it all up. I mean, we've got even Brian Armstrong out here. We're talking about that genius bill, the Stablecoin Bill Act. Talking about
stable genius.
Yeah, Senate should vote yes on genius and pass the stablecoin legislation. I agree. They need to. This person here saying passing stablecoin legislation is an urgent national priority. The future of finance will be built on blockchain infrastructure. The U.S. needs a trusted digital native U.S. dollar to compete in increasingly on-chain global community. The truth is, the U.S. needs a trusted digital native U.S. dollar to compete, period. Now, I mean, all fiat currencies are in dire straits right now. None of them are performing well. We've learned this throughout history. You can go. That's why I think everybody should read the Bitcoin Standard. You can go throughout history, thousands of different years, and see when we debase the monetary supply, all of society crumbles. And then when we get back onto a hard money supply, all society flourishes.
Look what happened. Remember I was bringing up Ray Dalio in the wake of World War I? Little thing called the Great Depression.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
but we had the Roaring 20s before, woo!
Yeah, we brought those
high up our own supply.
We brought those central banks in 1913, and it's been a pretty rough ride ever since. They were supposed to stabilize things, and they absolutely have not. It's very unfortunate that we've gone to a bad, a soft money supply. They have all kinds of crazy words that they use. Oh, we need the elasticity, and basically what that means is we want to control it, and we want to be able to manipulate it in our favor for when we need what. And we had a hard money supply, and guess what? The banks kept having bank runs, and like, oh, we're going to stop these bank runs by being able to print more money on demand whenever we want to. So it's just a bad system. You can see throughout history, it's happened. It's literally what caused the fall of Rome. That's how old of a problem this is. And, when they were, a lot of people that understand the history of economics.
Andrew Tate said it was because men started listening to women in ancient Rome.
No, it's because they started putting copper in their gold coins. And then eventually it was all copper and no gold. And the whole thing fell apart. So it's just.
Say the lead aqueducts led to the lessening of their general IQ.
Look, people have all kinds of theories, but there's one
Don't say as
consistent
well as going on in the bathhouses.
there's one consistent thing throughout history, and it's when you get away from a hard money supply, it's only a matter of time before society crumbles, and that's the world we're living in today. Our hope is that we can get the world back on a true hard money supply. When the U.S. was on a gold standard, it was the most successful it's ever been. Ever since we've come off the gold standard, it's been a steady and slow decline. If we can get onto a Bitcoin standard, I think we can be great again and lead the world. And if we can do that, it'd be great because all the rest of the world's currency is based on our currency. So if we can shore up the dollar, we can literally fix the entire world. I know it sounds crazy, but
This is a good point here, Jimbo Khan. If stablecoins are tied to the dollar, then holding Tether or USDC can't be a hedge, right? That's right. And that's why Bitcoin is the hedge.
Absolutely.
And the stablecoins, it's just a hedge against Bitcoin. So, I mean, it's turtles all the way down.
Well, what stable coins are is a way to get new liquidity into the blockchain ecosystem. So all that really is when you see a stable coin print, that's just money coming out of the traditional system into what is the new financial system. And so what do people do generally after they buy stable coins? It's easier for them to get from stable coins to Arrow, to Ondo, to Bitcoin, to Ethereum, to other things within the blockchain ecosystem. So I think getting everybody on a stable coin standard and getting the rest of the world using stable coins, it just makes the friction that much less, or one step away. If you've got because you got to remember, we're in a pretty privileged position here in the United States or any major financial country, whether you're in Australia or Europe somewhere on the euro. If you're on a somewhat stable fiat system, when I say somewhat, because it's all declining slowly, you have a huge advantage over most of the rest of the world who doesn't know literally days, weeks, months, years if their fiat system's even going to be in place. There's huge inflation, there's turnovers in leadership that just say, oh, all your money that you've saved up is actually worthless now. You're going to have to start from scratch again. We're going to come take your property, whatever it is. That's the reality for most of the world. If those types of people even if they can get to the dollar, which we all know here is slowly losing its value, but it's losing its value much slower than most currencies in the world. So if you're able to be in a situation where you're in the dollar now, and then you can start to see your dollar next to Bitcoin, and you can see the buying power of Bitcoin going up and up and up and up and up over time. It's only a matter of time before you say, you know what, I'm going to get a little bit of that Bitcoin stuff and hold on to it.
Especially when you're a company with $100 billion in cash, or you're a country with, $200 billion in treasury. So these things start to add up. USD slowest sinking ship. Now, I did skip one thing for the Tether thing. Other coin, like besides Coinbase, everybody had a hack attempt here. So I just want to give a big shout out. And they actually have some details on the hacker. Binance and Kraken were thwarted their own social engineering attacks similar to Coinbase. There's a picture of the hacker who tried to get into Binance and Kraken here. I think it was this guy. That was the guy. Yeah, they found him. They found him.
They got him, man. They got to keep
good job,
that
Binance security team.
Yeah, they can't keep that internet out of prisons, I guess.
Over the other side of the screen is P. Diddy. Like, I don't remember my seed phrase.
No, he's just asking what are people saying about me on the internet?
Yeah. What would be on that computer screen? League of Legends bronze?
Yeah, probably. I don't know if he's probably not even in bronze. I think they have they have iron now. He's probably down in the iron league.
You know that picture of Wolverine? He's looking at the picture of Jean Grey.
Yeah.
Is it Caroline?
No, I think he's over Caroline. That ship has sailed.
I cannot wait for
maybe
the
it's
movie.
Sam Bucko.
Could be that. Let's see. Maybe it's Biden. He's like, damn it, he was supposed to pardon me and he forgot.
Yeah.
He forgot. I don't know if you saw that. The Her report, that audio pretty damning. But now we talk about the other thing, which cancer sucks. My mom, she passed of breast cancer.
Sorry.
I don't really care. I don't want to focus on that. I think the Her report and the audio's much more newsworthy, but they're not going to cover that. So hey, the media has shifted. But speaking of shifting, you know what else has shifted?
What's that?
Solana has shifted. Chainlink CCIP is now officially live on the Solana mainnet. We had talked about they're in the test phasing, and now it is alive as of this morning. And so this is really good for Solana DeFi. You know what this is terrible for?
What's that?
Pith.
Yeah,
I traded my Pith today.
Yeah, that's good. You notice Pith? They had
traded back into Solana.
They had another
in the Discord.
They had another outage. Did you see that? They had their
Oh,
feed went down over. I think it was
Piths?
Pith. Yeah, the Pith feed went
Do
down.
you think it's Chainlink's like security team? Maybe, you know, it's a nice little advertising move right there.
No, I mean I don't think it's. I
Why
think
not? You put the nerd on it for 8 hours,
I
fud the
just don't think. I think
competition.
they know they're focused on making their product better, not necessarily tearing down others. But I think it was a bad look. I mean, it ended up wrecking people in DeFi positions. Basically, I want to say, and don't quote me on this. I'm just doing it from memory. It was several hours. I don't know if it was 2 or 4 or 6. I want to say it was in that range. Several hours that the Pith price feed was down, and it did cause serious issues in a lot of stablecoin positions. So yeah, this is another big win for Chainlink, another win for Solana, and I would be getting out of Pith as well. And actually, Solana is on one of my lists. I would like to accumulate more of right now. I think
Yeah,
they're gonna
yeah.
have a strong summer.
I'll go ahead and admit I was down 37.5%. I traded Solana into Pith, trying to time, you know, just a little bit of a mini altcoin run in Solana ecosystem, and I was down about 30%. I just put it back into Solana and just put it back into the faster horse. So, you know, increase my Solana exposure. It's a little experiment. Now, some of my other Solana bets are doing well. You know, Camino doing a little bit better there. Some of the specifically, you know, I guess things that Aave might not touch for a while, Chainlink might not touch for a while, some of the big players might not touch for a while. There's definitely some wins to be had in Solana for sure.
Yeah, that's DeFi crypto airdrops mentioned, and this is a good one. Layer Zero, I think it's slept on a lot. I would actually
Yeah.
like Layer Zero over Pith. I mean, they're doing a pretty good job with interoperability solutions. Just like
Ratch
not
Burns,
just like Chainlink, but
Roch
similar to
Burns,
Chainlink.
Mike. Okay, God, some of these names, you guys. All right, so Mike, if you change your name, I'll be much more likely to show your messages. In the
Almost
future.
got him. Almost got him.
Almost did. Are you holding Chainlink through the cycle? No, I plan on selling. You know, I round tripped. I don't know if it was all my Chainlink, but definitely at least most of my Chainlink. I round tripped it, man.
Yeah,
And yeah, I don't plan on doing that again.
I've round tripped it as well. I will say Chainlink, believe it or not, is the one that if I had to choose more than one coin, okay, Bitcoin is my forever hold. If I had to choose another coin to hold for 10 years plus, I would choose Chainlink over Ethereum, Chainlink over
I might
Solana.
choose it over Cardano if it was 10 years.
Yeah, if you had to hold the coin for 10 years, I think Chainlink is my next option. Now, I'm not saying I would. I don't. There's nothing right now that I would hold over 10 years other than Bitcoin. But Chainlink, I do feel like has set itself up for actual long-term dominance.
I plan on selling my Cardano, my ADA, and I'll be very I'll be forthcoming, very upfront about all my ADA sales. So make sure you turn on those notifications. I just bought a new DeFi coin. I had some exposure before. I increased my exposure, kind of getting in at the same price. So tonight I'm going to be telling you what altcoin I bought, and so make sure you have on those notifications. There's a lot. Speaking of Cardano, there's a lot of I don't know, just controversy here.
Yeah, there is.
Over the past few weeks, there's been questions about the ADA voucher redemption process ran by IOHK after 2021. And so, if you don't know, there's a Japanese ICO. And so people gave money in Bitcoin, and then they're going to get a Cardano airdrop. Some people were not found. And they apparently, I haven't seen anyone, disagree with this. They did a lot of effort to try to track these people down. They did a lot of, they did more than emails or phone calls. They literally put boots on the ground in Japan and started knocking on doors. Private investigators really tried to hunt these people down. They weren't able to find everybody. Well, they ended up putting those tokens back into the treasury. And some are saying that was stolen. TJ, would you say that is stolen or reallocated? I think it's an argument for both.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I haven't read into this much enough, so it went back into the treasury, is what you're saying, and instead of it seems like it was redirected at the very least, and
redirected at the very least. The worst allegations is Charles stole it from me. I don't think anyone's saying I was a Japanese ICO whale or anything, but people are saying he stole it. I would say, given what they're doing with the ecosystem, funding a lot of things, very upfront with their governance proposals, I don't get the vibe of, I bought a bunch of Lamborghinis with your money. Ha, 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 ha. I do think it's, within the Cardano Foundation's, executive overview. And as a Cardano holder, I have zero problems with it personally. What about you?
Yeah, I'd say I think they should just come out and clear this up. I did see there was some back and forth. Charles was asking for the Cardano Foundation to come make a statement on it, and I think it was the COO came out and said, like, basically just took a shot back at him, saying like, "Oh, every time there's a problem, you ask, you say you have problems with the Cardano Foundation, and then whenever you get yourself in some hot water, you ask the Cardano Foundation to come bail you out. Maybe if you and the CEO could get along, you guys could resolve this together." I don't like to see that type of infighting. I don't like to see that kind of petty back and forth. I feel like they should be able to resolve this. I don't know. I guess you could make a case that it's doing everything in public is good for transparency, but in a lot of ways, I think like, they need to get this behind them. Cardano's doing a lot of really good things. The Midnight team is doing a lot of really great things. I think there's a really good opportunity for Cardano to help facilitate Bitcoin DeFi. And there's a lot of bullish things on the radar, and I hate to see it get caught up in a lot of this drama.
There was a really logical explanation for it. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds, but Cardano is a proof of stake coin. And back then, a lot of things were proof of work.
Yeah.
Proof of work, those who don't know, is like Bitcoin, how Ethereum used to be. You turn on your computer, you secure the network. Proof of stake is how Ethereum is today. Cardano, you have a bunch of tokens and you validate it to a network. And so that's how proof of stake works. And so their point was, let me see, this is Cardano Whale, very, very smart guy. He says it a lot better than me. And so in a proof of stake, holding coins is an abstraction for hash power. So it's a way to determine, how to secure the network. If you start out heavily inside our own and never decentralize your coin holder base, you're forever centralized and block production, period. And so there's a way to increasingly make it where just a few whales couldn't push Cardano in a bad direction.
Yeah, it was part of their decentralization roadmap, and it's part of like what a lot of people have issues with Tron, where like Tron is proof of stake, and what everybody knows, I think it's 13. I don't know if it's still this way, but at one point it was 13 super delegates did most of the block confirmations, and it was well known that Justin Sun owned most of those. So that you could say it's extremely centralized. And the similar complaint with Solana. And that's part of how they get the speed is it's more centralized. Now, and I'm not saying Solana is more decentralized than Tron. Don't misquote me there or misunderstand. But it's the main thing that Cardano could have done the short, easy route and remained. They could have had more speed, but they actually chose to prioritize decentralization versus other things. And that's part of why Cardano has been slowly moving towards this progression. So I think it's a good thing overall, but you definitely want to get this stuff cleared up. And hate to see, 420 likes. If you guys could smash that like button for us, we really appreciate getting the good news out there, helping people learn about Bitcoin and saving themselves from the big print that is coming.
Yeah, for sure. So as a holder, zero concerns. I'm rooting on the team there. We do got a little watch list. Mantle is going to have a major new integration next week. Jupiter, 2 big announcements next week. Avalanche Summit is going to start tomorrow. U.S. Senate, we should get the stablecoin legislation potentially today. Solana MetaMask co-founder confirmed native wallet support for Solana.
Yeah,
coming in May, so that's going to be pretty.
And May's almost over, so I think that's we've heard that a lot. That Solana's coming to MetaMask again. That's another reason I'm wanting to pick up more Solana. I think Solana is going to have a good 90 days or so in the future, so I'm looking to add to my Solana bags when I get a chance.
All right, and folks, that's the stream for today. But you know what? I'm going to end with a bang here, or with a shart. We're going to do the $50 short with 50x. Because we're degen, and we'll talk about this trade tomorrow.
A 50-50 shart
links down below. Yeah, let's hope I don't get sharted hard because I'm already down 4%. You should never, ever, 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 ever trade 50x, 5x. That's going to be a little bit better for you folks out there. So just be careful. Trading with leverage is an easy way to get wrecked. But I'm looking at the relative strength index on the 1 minute because these are scalp trades.
1 minute, man.
And as long as this RSI doesn't really clear this area, I'm feeling pretty good about a potential reversal here. So
all right,
what we call the shart in the business.
And we're going to hit a word from our sponsor, Arculus. Use code DC20 to get 20% off. Cold storage is the way. You need to secure your bags and secure your freedom. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
We just wanted to take a quick second to shout out our sponsor, Arculus. They are a cold storage hardware wallet, helps you secure all of your digital assets for the future. Just tap this thing to the back of your phone and boom, you're in. We wouldn't be able to do this without them, but also wouldn't be able to do this without you guys, the Disco fam. You've supported us a lot over the years. If you want to support the channel now, just use the code DC20. It gets you 20% off this card. It's the #1 way you can support this channel going forward. Thank you for your support. We'll see you at the top.